welcome to Quiz 2 Review. Today we're going to be talking about 9.1 through 9.3. So first, let's talk about 9.1, inverse and joint variation. So number 1, tell whether x and y show direct variation, inverse variation, or neither. So for this first one, or for any of these, when we're given the equation, we need to first get y by itself. That'll help us to see more clearly whether it's inverse or direct or neither. So to do that, we multiply both sides by y. So this becomes xy, or x equals 4y. Then divide both sides by 4 to get y equals x over 4. Stop it. Which can also be written as 1 over 4x. Since our 1/4 is being multiplied by x, this would be a direct variation. Now looking at b, do the same thing. We want to get y by itself. So we multiply both sides by y to get 4 equals xy. Divide both sides by x to get y equals 4 over x. In this case, our x is in the denominator, so when that happens, it's going to be an inverse variation. And we could have also looked right up here. We have an x and a y in the denominator, so we could have seen it's an inverse from that as well. Alright, and then C, I'm actually going to change C, so I want you to put a big X through it and make a new table. This will help me to see if you actually watched the video. So, your new table is going to be 1, 2, 1.5, and 0.5, 0.25, and 1/3. So, looking at this, the key thing is that we have to put in numerical order. Okay, so looking at this, we have 1, 2, 1.5, 0.5, 0.25, and 1/3. So we're going to have to take this 1.5 and move it up in between the 1 and 2, and the same thing for the 1/3. That will also have to join along. So then this will make a 1, 1.5, 2, 0.5, 1/3, 0.25, and 1/3, as we know, is like 0.3 repeated. So as x goes down the table, it's actually increasing, and as y goes down the table, it is actually decreasing. So from here we have to say, okay, well, it could be inverse, but we have to check. You remember, our inverse equation is y equals k over x. So we have to test 2 points. So looking at this, we can just test 1, 0.5 first. And so we're just plugging things in. So we plug it into our equation. So 0.5 equals k over 1. So solve for k. K is 0.5. And then if we test another point, let's just test 2. So that would be 2, 0.25. So if we test that, we get 0.25 equals k over 2. 0.25 times 2 is 0.5. So since we have 0.5 for both, it is inverse. Okay. And then for D, we have to do the same thing. Let's check to see if it's in numerical order. 4.3245. Ooh, not quite. So we're going to have to take our 4.3 and move it down in the same way. We have to move our 2.7. We have to move it down with it. So there's going to be a 4.3 here and a 2.7. So looking at this, now it goes 2, 4, 4.3, and 5. So as we go down the table for our x's, we're actually increasing. And we are actually decreasing for our y's. So again, we could say this could be inverse, but we have to check, and just as a reminder, y equals k over x it'll be in that form. So let's just test a couple points. So let's test 2, 5. That's a good one to test. We can pick any of these 4. So if I plug in 2, 5, I should get 5 equals k over 2. So k is 10. So if I test another point, if it's inverse, it should be the same. So I'm just going to test 4, 3. So 3 equals k over 4. 4 times 3 is 12, so k equals 12. Ooh, since these are not the same, that means that it is neither. Okay, since our k's are different, that's what makes it neither. Okay, so moving on to number 2, write an equation for the given relationship. So it says D varies jointly with C in the square root of B. So since it varies jointly, that means we know we're going to have a k and 2 variables, and D is going to be on one side of our equation, and we know we're going to have a k, and it varies jointly with C, so C, and we know that these are all going to be multiplied together in the square root of B. So this is our equation. And then for B, m varies directly with n and inversely with p squared. So we know we're going to have m on one side of our equation, and then it varies directly, so that means it's just going to be multiplied by our k, so with n, and then inversely with p squared, so that means p squared has to be in our denominator. Okay, so now looking at number 3, the variables x and y vary inversely. So inversely, that should give you a hint that we're going to be using the equation y equals k over x. So it says find an equation that relates x and y when x is 5 and y equals 11. So we have to plug in these 2 points in our inversely related equation. So that means we're going to have 11 equals k over 5. Multiply both sides by 5, so you get k equals 55. So that means our actual equation is going to be y equals 55 all over x. So then it says find y when x is negative 3. So then we're going to take this equation, plug in x of negative 3. So we're going to get y equals 55 over negative 3. And we can't simplify this, so this is our final answer. Now, looking at number 4, write an equation that describes when x varies inversely with y and directly with z squared. So this will give us the general equation of, x equals, varies inversely with y, so that will be k over y, and directly with z squared, so that means our k is going to be multiplied by z squared. This is our equation, so it wants us to find k when it gives us x, y, and z. So let's plug everything in. So we have 4 equals k times 6 squared all over 3. Multiply both sides by 3, we get 12. 6 squared is 36, and that's multiplied by k. So we know our k is 1/3. And that is our final answer. Now, what I want you to do is reflect. What do you need to remember about 9.1? I want you to take just like 30 seconds in between this part 1 and part 2 of the video. Just reflect personally, what do you have to do to prepare for 9.1? Alright, right. I have 3 tick marks. If you have more things, you can write more. But there you go. Once you're done, you can move on to 9.2 and 9.3.